Zelda series is famous for its stories of heroism and courage, of a hero overcoming adversity. But in order to create these worlds in which these quests take place, in order to give a depth to the land of Hyrule, darker, sadder elements are often added. Because the Zelda series isn't always just about a kid with a sword taking on evil. It often deals with the human side of war and conflict, about those who are affected most by the tragic events of the story. I love seeing these sad, dark elements in Zelda games because it shows that the main villain, the one imposing their will on the land of Hyrule, isn't just a plot device to give us an adversary to face at the end of the game. A lot of moments in Zelda games are truly heartbreaking and help create the feeling of a real world full of real people. Before we start though, this video is sponsored by Amino, so huge shout out and thank you to them. Amino is an app built from a huge amount of different communities. There's like Game of Thrones, there's science, there's cute dogs, but obviously the one I care about and probably you care about the most is the Zelda Amino. The Zelda Amino is a place you can talk about your favourite game series with a huge amount of other people who also love Zelda. There's posts about cosplaying, there's posts about art, there's theories, there's polls, there's chat rooms. It's a really active community. If you want a place for non-stop Zelda discussion and you're not on the Zelda Amino, you're really missing out. I've got a chat room open on Zelda Amino at the moment. You can find me by searching my name, Zeltik. I'll be popping in over the next few days to talk with you guys. As well as this, on my profile there's a poll so you guys can vote on your favourite of the 5 heartbreaking or sad Zelda moments I go over in this video. So if you like the sound of the Zelda Amino, click the link in the top of the description or the highlighted comment, I'll put it on screen as well, to download it on your iOS or Android device. So today, without any further ado, I'll go over my top 5 sad or heartbreaking moments in the Zelda series. As usual, these are just my opinions, so if you disagree, feel free to leave it in the comments below. Number 5. Fi's Farewell, Skyward Sword. Fi's farewell at the end of Skyward Sword is the absolute definition of the saying, "You don't know what you have until it's gone." While the ancient spirit of the sword is often considered one of the more irritating or grating companions Link has ever been accompanied with on his journeys, the moment in which she says her farewell to the hero of the skies for the final time is universally beloved as one of the most touching, heartbreaking moments in the series. After you beat Demise at the climax of the story, Fi informs you that, as is her purpose, she must return to a sleep without end in the Master Sword. In her usual robotic fashion, she instructs you to place the sword within its pedestal and end the necessary companionship between master and servant. She was a spirit created by the goddess Hylia to serve the hero who carries the Master Sword, a being who is incapable of human emotion or spirit, whose only purpose was to assist Link. Swallowing his emotions, Link thrusts the sword into the pedestal and brings his adventure with Fi to a close, with her consciousness seemingly vanished into the core of the legendary blade. But as he begins to walk away, the familiar sound of Fi's spirit chimes from within the sword, which glows with a faint blue light. In her last few moments, she explains that when she first awoke, she perceived her adventure with Link as merely serving the function she was assigned by the goddess. But now that the quest has come to an end, she considers the information corresponding to the time she spent with Link among the most precious data she has on record. She lacks the capability to feel human emotions, but as she prepares to rest within the sword for eternity, she experiences a feeling she believes correlates closest to the human emotion of happiness. Her consciousness starting to fade into a deep slumber, Fi utters her last words to the hero of the skies, "Thank you, Master Link. May we meet again in another life." With that, Fi submits to the sword's pull and allows herself to fall into a deep sleep inside the blade, where she will rest without end. Personally, I love Fi as a character. Her slow transformation from a robotic, personality-devoid phantom into a true friend to Link is beautiful. Seeing her become slowly more and more sentient over the course of your adventure gives a real sense of progression. The fact that such an emotional farewell comes from a being who is apparently incapable of expressing or experiencing emotions makes it all the more powerful. Throughout her adventure with Link, she's developed her first and her only friendship. Fi's farewell was one of the greatest moments in what could well be considered the strongest story of any Zelda game. Number 4. Cottla and Koko, Breath of the Wild. Here's one of the stranger choices on my list of saddest Zelda moments. You are probably expecting Fi's farewell. It's a moment that's among every Zelda fan's saddest moments, with good reason. But here's one a few of you might not know about. Cottla is a little girl in Breath of the Wild who lives in Kakariko village with her sister Koko. They're Sheikah, the daughters of Dorian, one of the guards of Impa's house. Dorian is heavily involved in the Kakariko village side quest which involves Impa's orb, the device which unlocks a shrine just outside of the village but was stolen. Dorian explains that he used to be a Yiga clan member, the evil nemesis of the Sheikah who reside near the Gerudo Desert, serving Master Koga. Dorian was a Yiga clansman until he met a woman with whom he fell in love and had 2 daughters. Seeing now that the malicious ways of the Yiga were wrong, Dorian tried to leave the clan and change his ways. But the Yiga aren't so easily slighted. They slaughtered Dorian's wife as punishment and threatened to murder his children too. So in order to protect his girls from this fate, he used his position as gatekeeper of Kakariko to gather information for the Yiga, serving as an insider. Dorian's story is the tale of a good man trying to escape the clutches of terrible people and suffering at the hands of the evil Yiga. It's a sad story, but what truly breaks my heart is the daughters, Cottla and Koko. Dorian's daughters wake up at 5 o'clock in Kakariko village every day. Cottla plays a game of hide and seek, claiming that her mother is hiding. She'll search all the way up to the shrine on the hill above Kakariko for 3 hours before giving up. Koko instead goes to the graveyard outside of the village where she weeps quietly by herself. If Link talks to her, she'll say that her mother is sleeping here, probably making friends in heaven. She explains that their father, Dorian, thinks it best not to tell them about their mother's demise, but that she's old enough to realise. She stays strong for her mother and for Cottla, who's too young to understand where their mum really is, that she's not really hiding, but was murdered by the Yiga. I love this little story because of how unceremonious it is. There isn't a fanfare and a great sad musical score to accompany this, it's just a real human moment in the world of Breath of the Wild. The Yiga are evil, and the consequences of their actions are felt by real people living in Kakariko village. This little family is one of the best things about an already amazing game. A father trying to protect his daughters from the harsh reality of their world, an older daughter staying strong for her sister, and a younger girl oblivious to the horrors of Hyrule. At night, Cottla dreams that her family are back together again. Number 3. The End of the World, Majora's Mask. Here's one I'm sure you expected, The End of the World. Majora's Mask is a dark game. It deals with hopelessness, depression, grief and loneliness. So for something to stand out as sad in an already bleak and dark game is pretty special, and I can't think of many things more impactful than the end of the world, when the moon itself comes crashing down into Clocktown. The moon falling is the central plot device of the game. You've got 3 days which you can relive over and over using the Ocarina of Time, in which to heal the various ailments of the land of Termina, and summon the 4 ancient giants to prevent the apocalypse. It's obviously pretty terrifying knowing that always, somewhere above you, this thing is looming, threatening to end the world. But what I think makes the falling of the moon such a brilliant plot device and one of the saddest things in the Zelda series is how the various people of the world react to their impending doom. Almost every character in Termina reacts in a different way to the falling moon. I'll highlight a couple of my favourite reactions here, but if you want, play some Majora's Mask and just talk to random people on the final day to see how they react, and how different they are to how they are on the first day. The Carpenters, for example, are a group of builders found in Clocktown, setting up the Carnival of Time. They're led by Muto, a loud and proud man who stays in the mayor's office for the first 2 days, arguing about whether the population of Clocktown should flee from the falling moon, while his men build the viewing tower outside. On the 3rd day he can be found outside, shouting up at the moon. His sons have fled the town as well as his wife and the Carpenters, and he stands there alone, defiant, challenging the moon to fall down. He's a man faced with a fear he's never really known, and his world is crumbling around him. While I think Muto's last stand is sad, I don't think it's anywhere close to what happens at Romani Ranch on the final day. Cremia and Romani are sisters. The eldest, Cremia, manages the farm after their father passed away, and acts almost like a parent to her younger sister. She's a kind soul who works tirelessly to earn a living for herself and her sister. On the final day, a few of the citizens of Clocktown flee to Romani Ranch to take refuge away from the moon's impending landing. She mentions though that she understands that even away at the ranch, they aren't safe from the moon. Romani is oblivious to the apocalypse since she's so young, and so Cremia allows her to drink Chateau Romani, the special drink heavily inferred to be alcoholic and drank by adults in the milk bar for the first time, before telling Romani to sleep in her bed with her. This is such a heartbreaking acceptance of the end. Cremia understands that there's nothing she can do to protect her sister from her fate, and so gives her alcohol before sending her to a sleep without end. It's Chateau Romani. It's the first time I get to drink it. Until now, my sister always said, wait until you're an adult. But why now? Number 2. The Deku Butler's son, Majora's Mask. Let's stay in Termina for this penultimate choice. It's a fitting setting for depressing Zelda moments. I included this choice in my darkest things in Zelda list too because, man, this little story is just so depressing. The Skull Kid's actions, of course influenced by the power of Majora's Mask, cause so much pain and suffering during the game, but in my opinion, nothing's as heartbreaking as the story of the Deku Butler and his lost son. The Deku Butler is a character found at the Deku Palace, a stout and righteous Deku, the loyal servant of the king. He mentions to Link that before the events of the game he used to race with his son, saying that Link reminds him of his child. He mentions that his son left home without a trace, and that he constantly wonders where he's gone, what he's doing, who he's with and if he's okay. He wishes that his son would write him even a single letter just to let him know that he's safe. This sadness defines the Deku Butler's life. He's a solemn and proud servant to the king, who gets embarrassed when his repressed emotions bubble to the surface and chastises himself for allowing himself to get sentimental. Despite not knowing where his son has gone, or why, he righteously continues to carry out his duty. At the end of the game, however, after the end credits and the party, when all the characters are safe and happy thanks to the hero of time, the music fades out. We leave the carnival behind and travel to the catacombs that connect Hyrule and Termina, through which we travelled as Deku Link at the beginning of the game. Here we find the Deku Butler, quietly but openly weeping next to a tree. This tree is twisted and small, with a pained face and 2 branches like arms. We saw this tree at the start of the game, just before reaching Clock Tower, and Tattle mentions that it looks dark and gloomy, almost as if it could start crying any second. Hyrule Historia clarifies the horrific backstory behind this tree and its connection to the Deku Butler. This tree was once the Deku Butler's son, who left home. The Skull Kid, under the malicious control of Majora's Mask, murdered the child and tore his soul out from his body. This soul was used to curse Link, forming the Deku Mask and the Deku Link transformation. The Deku Butler's son was a jovial, happy child who loved to race with his father and explore the land of Termina. One day though, he travelled into the catacombs and he met the Skull Kid, and with him met his demise. It's heartbreaking to see that at the end of the game, when most characters are celebrating, the Deku Butler cries in despair and ruin as he finds his son's soulless corpse, alone in the cold tunnels beneath the land. Number 1. Grandma the Wind Waker. So we've gone over some pretty sad things in this list. Fi, the robotic servant of the sword, and her emotional farewell. A Sheikah father's attempts to hide his wife's death from his daughters. The end of the world and the various ways different characters come to terms with their impending deaths. And the fate of a child, killed by the Skull Kid and his father's sorrow. But in my opinion, there's one Zelda moment that truly breaks my heart every time I play through it. A moment that's so emotional for me that reinforces the feeling of being the hero and needing to save the land of Hyrule and the people in it. That moment for me is Grandma's illness in The Wind Waker. Grandma in The Wind Waker is one of my all-time favourite Zelda characters. A caring, elderly woman, she looks after both Link and Aryll in their house on Outset Island. We don't know what happened to their parents, but it falls to Grandma to care for the 2 children, which she does out of her love for them. On Link's birthday, she gives him the hero's clothes as a present, as is tradition on Outset, and tells him that she'll make him his favourite meal, her own homemade soup, as a birthday treat. However, Link's little sister, Aryll, is taken by the Helmarok King, snatched from the rope bridge above the island as she runs towards her older brother, and taken to the Forsaken Fortress. The news of Aryll's kidnapping hits Grandma hard. When Link returns to his house to get the hero's shield, she can't understand what sort of monster would take such a sweet, innocent girl. The loss of her granddaughter hurts Grandma deeply, which is made even worse when Link decides to travel with the pirates to rescue her. As Link sails away, Grandma can be seen watching him leave. Both her grandchildren have gone, Aryll stolen by a monstrous bird, and Link sailing out into untold danger to try and rescue her. On her grandson's birthday, the day she'd prepared soup and presents, her heart was broken and she lost the two most important things in her world. Later, when Link returns to Outset Island, we see just how heavily Grandma took the loss of her grandchildren. With no news of their safety, she becomes sick and bedridden, racked with worry and a feeling of helplessness. Sue Bell on the island mentions that she hardly ever leaves her house and eats next to nothing. She sits alone in a little home, dreaming of her grandchildren leaving, saying, "Don't go, don't leave your poor old grandma." This is, in my opinion, the saddest Zelda moment. It shows just how hard the events of the game hit the people in the Wind Waker's world. The purest character in the game, Link's warm and caring grandma, is completely broken by the loss of her grandchildren. She's literally worried sick, constantly in and out of fever dreams about them leaving, alone and terrified. Thankfully, with the help of a fairy, Grandma can be cured of her ailments. Overwhelmed with joy to see her grandson again, Grandma will gift Link with her homemade soup whenever he wants, saying that she'll try to be strong. Later on, she'll even send Link a letter with all the rupees she's saved up, asking where he is, if he's safe, if he's hungry, warm enough, injured, and saying that she just wants her two grandchildren to return to her safely, and that if she has that, she needs nothing more. Link's grandma is one of the most heartwarming characters in the entire series, and it truly breaks my heart to see her, sad and alone, with her two grandchildren lost at sea. It really reinforces the importance of Link's quest, makes you want to rescue Aryll and bring her home, not just because the game wants you to, but because your grandma needs it. Her story helps build the world of the Wind Waker, and it's stories like this one that makes me love the Zelda series so much. Thanks for watching this video. If you liked it, be sure to leave a like and subscribe if you want to see some more Zelda content. What are your favourite sad moments in the Zelda series? Let me know in the comments below. Again, a massive thank you to Zelda Amino for sponsoring this video. If you want to download the Amino app, there's a link in the top of the description or the highlighted comment. Thanks for watching guys, and thank you so much for the huge amount of support on the channel recently. It really means a lot. Cheers guys, and I'll see you next time.